It's another Kicking It with the Colonels podcast, and really excited about this one here. Today, we are checking up with EKU Athletics Director and Vice President Kyle Moats, and might have a thing or two to talk about college athletics. Kyle, I appreciate you taking some time out to talk with us.
Glad to be here, Wes. Thank you. Hope your summer's going well.
Yeah, how's your summer going?
It's going good. We just got back from a little vacation, so we're excited to get back into the grind and get started.
It's kind of a weird time, especially for somebody like me that always needs to be doing something. The seasons are over with now, and you're kind of in that summer mode. How do you attack the off season? Is it kind of a time where you reflect back, plan for the future? How do you attack the off season?
Yeah, I don't know if I look back too much. Certainly when you have interviews with your coaches on the season, you talk about what happened, and then you look at things that you can do to try to improve the season or things that the coaches may want. But other than that, we're looking forward, planning for the fall and planning for the upcoming season. So it's really more about budgeting and about things that maybe big picture that we could do, but making sure that we can get ready to go for the season.
How do you find time personally to set the job aside as much as you can to do things you enjoy? Because I know you like being a granddad and playing with the grandkids. How do you find time to set the job aside and do the things that you want to do outside of being the AD?
Yeah, I think that's evolved over time. I think when I first started, it was all about the job. And then you could probably talk to my family and they'd probably say the same thing. It was all pretty much what do you have to do to get the job done and work a lot. Not saying I don't work a lot now, but maybe it is a little bit different where if you've got a game or you've got something that's important to them, you try to make that as a grandparent, where probably didn't do that as well as I should have as a father, but have a little bit more flexibility as a granddad, especially with everybody being here. So I think you just have to make it a priority. I don't ever feel like I'm shortchanging where I work or the institution that I work for. So again, it has to be a priority, and I enjoy working, so I don't think it's really work. There's certainly some days, sometimes that it's more of a job than others, but I try to incorporate both. This is something I enjoy to do in terms of recreation. It's work, but it's also something I really enjoy doing.
It's kind of hard to believe you've been here at EKU for a little over 13 months now. How would you describe how that year plus has been for you so far, just personally and for your family?
Yeah, I think for me, it always is that first year is a learning curve a little bit. Not so much about the job itself, but it's just the people that you work with. And you have to find out who can help, who's the allies, who's folks that sometimes it's hard to get things done. You have to understand who's who within the university. And you have to have as many allies as you can possibly get, because this is a big job that needs a lot of things from a lot of different areas. So that's probably the biggest thing that I had to do. The job itself isn't that much different regardless of where you're at. You still have to deal with coaches, you still have to deal with personnel, you still have to deal with the fans and the experience. Those are all a little bit different depending on where you come from, but that's pretty much the same. So I think maybe now moving forward, you get a little bit more strategic planning. I mean, than what we had the first year. My first year was just trying to get things to understand it, get the right personnel in the place that we needed to have, which we had some personnel changes, which was a good thing. So now we can try to tack it a little bit different with a lot of other things that have come up that I'm sure we'll talk about that may affect the planning moving forward. But again, we're in a good position, and I like where we're at, and there's always room for improvement, and that's what we're going to try to do is keep getting better.
I know you said you don't like to reflect back sometimes, but appease me for just a little bit. When you look back at the 2024-25 season, what are you most proud of?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was the interaction and trying to get people working together. I think that's really important. I don't know how you can have a department that's divided. And I'm not saying that when I came in we were divided. I'm not saying that at all. I don't want that. But I really wanted to make sure that they knew that I was available and that I was engaged with what was going on, not only from a student-athlete standpoint, but from our employees. Now, the second thing probably that I was most excited about was just the whole Alumni Coliseum renovation getting done and getting moved in there. That was a big deal, right? And we're still not done, right? We're still not done, but at least we got done enough to get games in there, had commencement there, graduation. So those are important pieces to the university, not just the athletic department. And then you're always going to have successes with your teams. I wish we would have more successes, right? You always wish you had more successes, but football going to the playoffs was a great thing, and cross country winning a conference championship is a good thing. Winning championships is always good. There's never anything bad about winning championships. So you had some firsts with women's soccer getting the finals in the conference championship. That was a first. That's a good thing, right? So I think when you look at those types of things, you always want to see how we can do better. But we certainly have room to improve on the field, and we'll continue to take a look and evaluate that. In the classroom, we did great. I mean, I don't know how many years in a row it's been, but something 24, 25 years in a row with 3.0 and above, probably our best overall year academically. So kudos to our Bratsky staff. They do a great job. So that just kind of happens, right? Well, if it doesn't happen after 24 years, people are going to recognize it happens 24 times in a row. Everybody thinks it's supposed to happen. Well, there's a lot of hard work that goes into that, not just for the Bratsky folks, but also for the student athletes and the coaches that make it a priority.
Was there a team that was a pleasant surprise performance-based this past year that you thought this team really got the most out of what they had to offer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think certain parts of the season, I would say there were certain teams that were doing well, and then maybe it didn't work out. But I think football, from where they were and where they ended up, was really a great surprise, because they had to win at the end and win a lot, and they did. And I think they're a really good football team at the end of the year. I thought men's basketball for a certain time there was really good. Until George got hurt, we were really playing well. They had a good chance, I think, to make some noise there. He gets hurt, and that changes the word a bit, obviously. So women's soccer, I think, also got better toward the end of the year, right? To make that run, to beat Florida Gulf Coast, that was, I think, a pleasant surprise. So, volleyball also beat Florida Gulf Coast, who's the number one team. So I think there were some highlights that were really good, and I'm sure I'm missing some, but those stick out in my mind, I think, the most. Those stick out in my mind the most.
Talking with Vice President and Director of Athletics, Kyle Moats, here on the Kickin' It with the Colonels podcast. All right, so there's been a lot of changes in college athletics over the last X amount of years. One of them being the most recent being this new House settlement. How does that impact EKU?
Well, the House settlement allows you to opt in or opt out. We chose to opt in, which means that we can participate in revenue share. And I'll try to be as basic as I possibly can. When you hear about revenue sharing, you hear about salary caps. The Power Four has a salary cap of $22 million. We obviously don't have $22 million. Our entire budget is $23 million. So what we're able to do with that revenue sharing option is to bring more money in to help pay for our players, the student athletes. That doesn't mean we're going to have $22 million, but it does give us the option to pay incremental increases to those student athletes. All of our student athletes, our board student athletes, if we choose to do that. So that's probably the biggest change in things. How does that affect us? It's really not going to affect us too much, except you have roster limits now. I know you hear about the roster limit piece of that. Those have increased in terms of scholarships. So I'll just give you, for example, baseball. Okay, baseball had 11.7 near equivalency, which means you could spread that scholarship money out to everybody on the team if you chose to do so. That number now is 34, I believe. So we could do 34 scholarships as opposed to 11.7. Well, we don't have 20 times $30,000, which is a scholarship. We don't have $600,000 that we're just going to get from the university, right? So the Colonel Club and those fundraising entities are really going to have to step up and be a big help to us just to get us to kind of even, if you will, in the scholarship limits and to be fully funded. And let me just try to continue to go down that road. We were fully funded in all of our sports prior to this house settlement. That was a benefit, right? That kept us very competitive. Now moving forward, even the Power 4 schools don't have every sport that's fully funded, right? They're not going to do that. But it just allows us to continue to ask for money from our donors to help the scholarship monies to help for our kids. And so there's still a big gap there now that we can work with. NIL is still going to be there. That's a separate deal, right? You have to do something for NIL, meaning you have to, from an advertising standpoint or a marketing standpoint, you have to do something to get that money. NIL is not going away here. And the revenue share piece of that just allows us to reallocate some monies internally that we have, not get extra money, but if we were to get extra money, we could then pass along to student athlete.
So you have this new kind of way that schools can directly offer NIL to kids now. Is there going to be, in your experience and your expertise, is there going to be a difference between an internal NIL, like the schools directly offering, and then something coming from the outside? Is those going to be two separate entities?
Yeah, really good question, Wes. And I think that's what people are wrestling with right now. Some are already doing that. We have not at this point. But the reason why you would do it would be that there's an entity within the NCAA called the NIL Go. And each NIL agreement that you have, if it's $600 and above, you have to submit that to this clearinghouse to make sure it's okay. If you do that in-house, you don't have to give it to the NIL Go to get it approved. And that's why a lot of people are going that way. So you don't have to go get it approved. It just becomes part of the university. We've chosen not to do that this particular time because I think there's also going to be a Title IX implication in this whole deal. We kept it separate up until this point, and I think we'll continue to do that because of the Title IX implications. Most of that money, if it goes to the university, then you choose to allocate it out, you're going to have to be or Title IX compliant to do that. The way it is right now, it's just market driven. The outside third party NIL, since I want to give it to football, I want to give it to men's basketball, or I want to give it to track, or wherever they want to give it, they can do that. It's not university necessarily allocating the. So it's something that we're going to have to think about in the future. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't do it. I'm just saying we're not going to do it right now. We're going to kind of see how it shakes out. But there's probably a good potential that it could come in-house, but not anytime soon.
And correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but for this upcoming year, there's a $20.5 million cap, correct, on this house settlement, and that is anticipated to rise every year. Does that have to come from athletic budget money, or does that come from university funds too?
Yeah, and in the case where you hear that money, it's really coming from television. That's where the Power Fours are getting that. But they're also have to make decisions. You've seen it across the country where there are people laying people off, they're cutting sports, they're reducing the number of scholarships they have per sport. All that goes to the cap that you alluded to. So we're not in the position where we have $20 million for our cap. Now there may be some decisions that have to be made to have to get more of the revenue share moving forward, but we're not going to have those types of monies to deal with. But we're still going to have the ability, I think, to move some money around, maybe to help in some areas.
And you mentioned kind of in-house collectives like Colonel Pludd, Maroon Fund. Are any of those going to have a much anticipated higher role with this being in play?
I don't know. I know if it's going to have a higher role. It certainly has an important role, and we need to continue to keep having those funds to be able to help our student athletes. So I think right now we need both. We need the Colonel come up with scholarships, and we need the NIL to help on the outside money, if you will, to help for the marketing part of our student athletes. We need both. But doesn't mean that we can't have it go internal, but we do need those monies, both of them, to help our student athletes.
With the house settlement, schools choosing to opt in or out, do you think that will add another layer to the transfer portal? Because the portal just recently coming out with that designated student athlete where the roster limits and everything will affect some players. Do you think that will add another layer to what already is a crazy transfer portal?
Yeah, I do. I think it's more about roster limits in terms of, I'll take, for example, for football. Football's traditionally been in the 120 on their roster. They like to have that number. And the number for football right now is 105. So that's where this designated student athlete piece has come to make sure that you can protect those kids that maybe you had to reduce because the South Southern roster limits were coming about. That's not going to last forever. That was just something that the judge asked to do to make sure the settlement could get passed and protect those kids. I don't think that's going to be a long-term issue. I think that's a short-term issue. Relative to the transfer portal, just generically, we have to have some more guidelines on transfer portal. It's not healthy for either side going right now. And I think it will get better. I think there'll be some dates put in there. I do think that will get better. That it has to get better because right now it's awful. But I do think the transfer portal is something that really has to be worked out. And I think they're working on that because they know it's such a problem for everybody.
Do you envision contracts coming into play?
Absolutely. He should have contracts. And I know that may go against what people say about employees, but I don't know how he cannot have contracts. And that's the difficulty. That's just trying to figure out all these applications that are employee driven. Like, it's just, you say it, you say in a civil, they're an employee, and it's hard to debate that, right? So you're going to have contracts. We're going to do contracts. Schools are going to do contracts in terms of term and what they get paid. Yes, it needs to be that way. And then if kids leave, there may be a payback. That's just the way it has to be. You can't have it both ways. Just can't have it both ways. I never feel like a rule is good if it's all one side. I never feel like that's a good thing. So you've got to get it back on track. And I think a contract, specific contract about terms and expectations, will be a good thing.
Did you ever envision it would come to this in all your years of experience?
Yeah, maybe I wish it didn't come to this because nothing surprises me. And it's not that we can't overcome it. I just think we didn't think about everything and the implications. And then every time the NCAA or somebody tried to do something, they got sued. And then when that happens and you get sued by everything, then you're gun shy about what you want to do. And this house in hopes of not getting sued so much so they can move forward. And then also they were wanting some help from the governor. That didn't come, as you know. So it's interesting times. We're still a long way from being finalized as to what it's going to be. But there's been a couple of people in the industry, I think most of them said, hey, if we just try to do the right thing based upon what this is supposed to do, then we'll be okay. Those that kind of do the NASCAR thing, which is everything you can possibly do to try to get around the rule to make it work, is not the intent. And I don't want to be like that. I want to be a part of the solution and not try to be a part of every time they have something come out, we try to figure out how to be it. And I don't think that's necessarily the right way to do it. And that would be the way I would hope that we would approach it.
And getting back to the portal, your players now come and go kind of yearly. And a lot of these head coaches are having to re-recruit their own players. So I think that's why, like you said, contracts would be very beneficial with the way that the portal is going. And there's now multiple windows, correct? There are still multiple windows for the portal. You look at it's spring for just football, for example. You're planning on having certain player in your starting lineup, and then they up and suddenly leave. So it really kind of creates a situation where you're having to kind of fill gaps as you go.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, the coaches need to come up with what the transfer portal should be. Let them come up with the dates. So they're in the trenches. They know the best. So I would completely rely on them for doing the transfer portal. The issue becomes, I think, is once you set the dates, it's the tampering. That's what the coaches get upset about, is the tampering and what goes on, because most of these kids already know they're going as soon as they say they're leaving. So there's been tampering going on. And I think it's really easy to say this, but it's hard to administer it. If you have rules, you need to enforce the rules. And if you break the rules, it needs to be severe. If they're severe enough, then people will stop doing it. If there's waivers or all kinds of excuses to change this or do that, then we're not going to get anywhere. So I would be in favor of whatever the rule is, you abide by the rule. If you don't, you get hammered with that. And you'll see things will slow down a little bit if that happens. But until that happens, it's a wild, wild west.
What would you like the penalty to be?
Well, the penalty has to be severe enough, whatever that is, from tampering or whatever it may be, to not do it again. So either you reduce the number of scholarships that you had or opportunities that you have, or you fine them severely. Because the money, everybody needs the money. They want the money to go to kids. So if you take that money away and you take out the tiers away, then that hurts you as a program. And they're going to have to do something, right? I mean, that's what the enforcement is now, moving away from the NCAA and moving towards this third party or outside and more to the conferences. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully things will be done quicker. That's always been one of the issues with the NCAA. It takes them forever to make a decision and go through the investigation process. So if things are quicker and things are handled in the right way, and you've got fines, or you've got something that's tangible, that's really strong, then things may slow down a little bit in terms of what's going on. And then that's going to take a little bit because people are going to test the system. They just are.
Well, yeah, the big news coming out of EKU here recently was earlier, just about a week or so ago, the announcement coming that beginning next sports season that EKU will transition to the United Athletic Conference for all sports, forming that alliance with the ASUN and the Western Athletic Conference. How did that move come to fruition?
Yeah, there's quite a few parts here, so let me try to break down. When the WAC kind of was in jeopardy, there were some schools that were available. And for us to solidify our position in football, we need more schools. Utah schools were kind of going the other way. They were in Big Sky and elsewhere. So we needed to replace those, kind of going together. That was all together. And some of the schools were available. Tarleton and Abilene Christian. Somewhat better footprint than what we currently have with Utah. And then UT Arlington, someone does a natural fall, but helps with the basketball piece of it. So that helped solidify football, thing one. Thing two was we were able to get the automatic qualifying bid from the WAC. And that might be not thing two, but thing 1AB, or A and D. Because if we wouldn't have the automatic qualifier, we wouldn't have done. So that allows us to be in the UAC for the conference in all of our sports. The league itself, the UAC, and the ASUN will be governed, if you will, by the leadership of the ASUN and some of the WAC folks. But it'll be under one umbrella. So both conferences will be overseen by the ASUN folks, and Jeff Bacon, the commissioner. But you still had two independent conferences. And I know we're calling it an alliance. Okay, so, but again, that I think is confusing a little bit to folks, so we're trying to educate them the best we can. But, we'll have our own championships. We'll do our own thing at the UAC. There may be some similarities and some things that you work very closely with the ASUN. Non-conference schedule, for example, very well could be something that it's an alliance, right? Because we're always meeting non-conference scheduling, especially in the basketballs. So that's something that could help out. We still want to play Belgrade, right? They're a rival. They're close by, but we still want to play that and everything. So I think it helps for a couple of things. One, the AQ is a big part of that. I'm indifferent as to how we can get to the NCAA tournament. Don't care how we get there, as long as we get there. I think we got a great chance in this particular league. It solidifies football. We're not completely done with football. I think we're going to have more teams in football. We don't have enough. So I think you'll see some more movement probably in the next 12 months because we're going to need to get more schools involved in football specifically. So those are really the two biggest things. The solidified football, the AQ was something that was important to the league and important to us that we had that separation. And then I think you have some economies of scale that you can save some money on or the money back to the school between the two leagues. So the unique concept, something a little bit different that's not been done. So I think the presidents felt like that was a good play. and we'll certainly support it. We'll have some different teams come in here, it'll be a little bit different, but that's not a bad thing. And as long as we can win, I don't care what the year.
Right. And you mentioned it, so 5 schools coming over from the ASUN, 3 from the WAC, making a total of 8, but only 7 play football. Is there a specific number that you would like to get to?
Yeah, I think 10 is a good number, right? Because that gives you kind of 8 games and then 4 in the non-con. I'm talking about football. And with the week 0 game, so you can add them, you can add 12 as opposed to 11 where you used to be able to have. Now you can add 12 total games. So I think that's a number to shoot for. I'm not sure we may be able to get to that right away, but I think that would be my number.
Do you feel like with this consortium that they are forming of the alliance and everything, that there will be some feeling out process? Will it take some time to kind of see where everything goes with? It's kind of never been done before. Do you feel like there may be some things that may take some time to get off the ground?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Well, last time, anytime you make that change, I think travel always something you have to look at. Again, you're going to Dallas, right? I mean, for all 3 of those, you're going to go to Dallas and then bus. So it's not hard. We've done that before with Tarleton, so it's not difficult. Maybe for some of the other sports, just getting familiar with it, but they travel all the time. So I think the recruiting may be an issue in terms of, not an issue, but just something you have to look at, because maybe you're going to shift a little bit more toward the Texas side of things than the Florida side of things. But our coaches try to adapt to that, and they can recruit. And if we got a kid they can play first, we don't care where they're from. So those are things that jump out, probably, just obvious things, travel and recruiting. But I don't think anything else. Tarleton's got quite a bit of money in terms of they're probably the highest budget in this league now. We're certainly right there. We should be able to compete based upon our budget. And this move, I can tell you, is really budget neutral. There's not any extra money. It's not like we're going to spend more money to do this. That's not the case. So that's a good thing, too. We don't want to have to spend more money to travel.
And I know things constantly change. And ever since the UAC was established as a football-only conference, people have been wondering what the future of the UAC was. Do you feel like this move solidifies that?
Well, that's what I said before. The football part of that solidified. But again, we've got some more schools we've got to get, right? So I do think it helps. And we made that commitment. Now it's just not a football conference. It's an A conference. So by adding those other schools, if we can get them, I think that would be the part that's really important piece of that, is to make sure that we get some more schools that are football for sure. And then if we could get some more that are all sports, that would be ideal.
And like I said, I know things are constantly changing, and I know you're always probably listening, but do you feel like this is a place where EKU could be long-term?
Yeah, I guess this is going to sound like a political answer in terms of what is long-term. In this state right now, things are happening at such a rapid pace. I don't know if this is, if it's forever. I don't know that. I think that'd be foolish to say it's forever. I go back to what I said the day I got here. I don't care what conference we're in. We just better do well and play well and win championships. Because if you don't do that, the chances of getting invited to anywhere else become much harder to do, right? Unless you're in a great market, right? And I love Lexington and Richmond as much as anybody, but some places get picked because of their markets solely. And we can name those. That's not us, right? That's not that our market is bad, but it just doesn't jump out from a media perspective as to why you would probably pick that school. So, we've got to have good finances, we've got to have good facilities, and we've got to have championship programs. If we want to have the ability to have any chance of going anywhere else, if that's the goal, we have to do those things really well. And then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Teams have goals going into a season, whether it's win a conference championship, make the national tournament, whatever. Do you, as an athletic department, have goals that you want to see accomplished in a sports season?
Yeah, I think the 2 major goals that we had, one is to win the ASUN Directors Cup, I believe is what it's called. That's number one. And two is to stay on budget. And stay on budget may be more important than number one, but certainly both those two things. Those are my two goals. We want to win as many championships as we can. We want to do it by staying on budget. So certainly we want kids to do really well. We want them to graduate. So those are things that are mutually not exclusive in terms of winning and trying to graduate. That has to happen. So, but our goal that I submit to the board is that we are the ASUN director Spuck champion. So that doesn't mean you have to win every single championship, Wes, as you know. But the more we win, the better chance we have to win cup.
We're now in phase 3 of the renovation of the Baptist Health Arena. You know, you're mentioning it earlier. What's the progress on that?
Yeah, I'll jump to the end. Okay, we started a lot of construction again with the seats last week, and our goal is to have everything ready to go by mid-November. So when I say that, with the seats and the overbuild, and I think the two walls on the side are going to be manipulated a little bit. They're not going to be completely knocked out. Seats will be a little bit different, but I feel comfortable that we're going to get to where we need to get to and be done by the time they may have the first game of men's basketball, women's basketball, but very close to that. So that's the exciting part. We can finally be done with that and have some consistency and for our teams to know what they're going to do and playing for that.
I'm really excited to see it. Just with the renovations I've done last year, it really just added so much to it, and I'm really excited to see what it all looks like when everything is finished.
Yeah, the seats will make a difference. It'll look a lot different. I think the experience overall will be better for our fans, and again, our student athletes love it, right? And they stand to me the most probably. But again, I've said this before. I didn't fully appreciate the change because I wasn't here to see what it was in the past, except for fixtures. I just walked in, it was completely destroyed in the demolition. So to see what we had for it being done and see where we're going to go, it'll be done in November, makes a lot of people excited and proud, and that's what makes me so happy.
And traveling to all these places in the conference like we get to do, I would put EKU up, toward the top facilities wise, just with overall concept of how everything is, and that can be a huge recruiting advantage to you too. Once Baptist Health Arena is finished, are there, and you don't have to say specifically, but do you have ideas or plans of maybe what's coming next?
Yeah. Well, I have ideas, but those ideas require financial support. I don't think there's any question we have to do something with football, right? We did that. That has to happen. We have to improve football. That's from the next biggest thing after we get done with Baptist Health. There's always some things you probably like to add and tweak, but I think the biggest thing, without a question, is we've got to do something with football and make the amenities more current, more fan-friendly, and we all know that. I think there's everybody from the top down understands that. It's just a matter of how we're going to get it done.
We talk a lot about some of the things around college athletics now, and let's kind of wrap this up here. We talked about the house settlement. How can fans that want to get involved with helping the monetary aspect for EKU athletics? How can fans do that?
Yeah, let me, if I can, talk about two things. One, we're going to implement a priority point system. And that's going to be involved with basketball coming up this year. It involves all our sports, but let's start with basketball. And that priority point system basically is based upon the levels of giving, and you'll be credited with points associated with that. So that'll determine kind of your seat location. If we go to postseason, your rank as to where you did to get the tickets and more of that. So those kinds of things. That's not anything new. It's been out there. Many schools have that. So that's thing one, and we're going to kind of roll that out in the weeks to come. Two is the curl pup. We're kind of revamping that. And as I mentioned before, there's a big need scholarship blocks. We still need monies to help from the scholarship perspective. That doesn't mean that our facility needs are gone. We still have a lot of things that are needed in terms of trying to make this athletic program the best that people want it to be. And I think probably the one thing that I would like to try to change in my time here, whatever time that is I think we've really relied on the university to kind of pay for everything. That's not where I used to coming from. That's not the way I've done it in any of the places I've been. We certainly had help and very appreciative of that. But we also have had a lot of, if you want to get things done, you have to do it on your own, right? For facilities to foundations, and we use those money to help with budgets. And we've got to change that mentality a little bit, that we got to help ourselves. And again, I am very appreciative of the folks that have helped out. But university has got a lot of things that they got to do too, and certainly they are be a big piece of what we're going to do. But we gotta help change that mindset a little bit. To want to help get better, we got to help ourselves. So again, not a criticism. It's just one of the things I've observed, and I think there's a lot of folks out there, and we've got to prove that we're worthy of giving to.
And can fans do that online through the EKU Sports website?
They can, Colonel Club. They can talk to our friend John Hamilton. There's plenty of ways if you want to give. And we got to ask, right? We've got to get out, meet with people, and talk to them about the vision of what we want to do. And again, I go back. If we want to be successful at the highest level, we've got to have scholarship money. We've got to have the best facilities. And we've got to be able to compensate our coaches and our student athletes at a competitive rate. Not the highest, at a competitive rate. Now more than ever here.
The 2025-26 season starts in about a month. You got any last-minute vacation trips before everything gets going heavy again?
No vacation trips. We're back. We're here. Just going to meet with coaches, and our kids will start coming back, of course. So, again, just looking forward to the school year, looking forward to get started. I love the fall. Fall's my favorite time of year. It's everybody's got great anticipation and hope and arrows. And so that's a good thing. And there's just, when you see campus and field campus, it's just really cool at that better time.
All right, well, we gotta let you spin the wheel before we get out of here. So you get this up and going here.
What did I do last time? You remember what I had last time? It was
you did the Uno reverse on me.
Oh, you?
Yeah.
Wow. Good remember. I don't remember. All right. You ready?
Let's mount this down so it don't fly away. I can't see it.
Looks like
you going for dream vacation, right? You just came back from one, not too long.
Yeah, dream vacation would be, dream vacation for me would be to go to Scotland and play golf at St. Andrews with my family. Yeah.
Okay. How's your golf game?
It's awful.
I'm not the only one.
Yeah, it was, I played one time, and it was miserable. I don't know why I want to play golf after I played as bad as I did, but the whole St. Andrews thing, I've always wanted to do that. I had to, take the boys, and maybe in 5 years, if I'm still upright, Katie grandson, and all the boys trip to St. Andrews. That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be cool. And actually have the grandkids remember that. That'd be something too. Well, Kyle, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much for checking in with us here. Lots of great stuff. I really enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to a very successful year. I'm excited about this upcoming year.
As always, thanks, Wes.
All right. That's Vice President and Director of Athletics, Kyle Moats. He's been kind enough to join us here on the podcast today. Until next time, you've been kicking it with the Colonels.